This is Sonic, or rather this is a version of Sonic. The Sonic was created as a response to the sanitized and friendly Mario, and would go on to define the early 90s as the era of mascot platformers. While all the copycats existed, not one of them managed to even capture a fraction of the coolness and edge that Sonic the Hedgehog had. Which is why it's sad to say that Sonic has lost most of what made him cool in the first place, and has fallen into a bit of an identity crisis as of recently. In this video, we're going to explore when and the way that Sonic lost his soul from a design standpoint. First of all, Sonic saved the Sega Genesis, at least in the Western market. Need proof? Just take a look at the sales records in North America prior to 1991. Let's face it, Sega Genesis was a flop. The pack-in title, Altered Beast, wasn't very consumer friendly, let's say. And Sega needed something marketable that they could sell to general audiences, but also the main demographic of video games at the time: little boys. So they held an internal design contest to create a new mascot. One of the designs ended up being a bunny, which was almost used, but the final design was a hedgehog. Common misconception about Sonic's original name: Needle Mouse is the direct translation of the word for hedgehog in Japanese, so his name was really Mr. Hedgehog. Sonic was truly made to appeal to the Western market. The designers note that his design influences were Michael Jackson, Santa Claus, and former President Bill Clinton. But you may be asking how this little blue guy compared to Mario. Take a look at this ad.
Danita Stokes, president of HAG.
It's bad enough that Sega Genesis has the most 16-bit games, but this new Sonic the Hedgehog, oh, he really doth my doilies. They say he's incredibly fast. Well, what's the hurry, mister? And about his attitude. Smarty pants. Why can't it be more like that nice boy Mario? Oh! Little brat!
Now, get Sonic free when you buy a Sega Genesis system at its new price of $149.99.
You can see by Sonic's snarky nature and the fact that the lady in the ad called Mario a nice boy, Sega really wasn't messing around. It was trying to get rid of the competition. Even their slogan, Genesis does what Nintendo don't. Skip ahead a few years to 1993, Sega's doing great. They decided to release a CD peripheral for the Sega Genesis, aptly named the Sega CD. Releasing in 1993 on the peripheral was Sonic CD, which had a wonderfully animated introductory and ending cutscene by Toei and Junio. This cutscene is where we truly see Sonic's personality begin to form. But what is Sonic's personality? In the early days of his creation, and even in some later games, Sonic was meant to be a defender. But pretty bare bones, the original plots of every game was Sonic trying to help the little woodland creatures that were stuck in Eggman's robots. Back to the Sonic CD cutscene, even with no dialogue, you can see that Sonic means business. The moment he sees Eggman is scheming something, he answers the call to action. Sonic, and by extension Sega, were doing pretty well for themselves in the early 90s. But Sony was cooking something up in the lab after getting denied by Nintendo to work on a partnership. This new Sony device would shake the gaming industry and kind of mess up whatever Sega was trying to do. When the PlayStation released, it was a big hit. Everybody was fawning over the 3D graphics and new advanced capabilities of the console. And although Nintendo and Sega both kept pumping out games well into the mid 90s, one thing was for certain: they needed to go 3D. So in 1995, Sega released the Sega Saturn to huge commercial failure. Nobody bought this. Still, they tried their hardest.
And the big Sonic game that was supposed to release for the console was unfortunately cancelled, which would have probably been its saving grace. However, we did get a collection called Sonic Jam, which comes with some neat artwork that I would like to show you. The artwork of Sonic from this game is so expressive and it really captures the mindset that Sega had towards Sonic in the 90s. Take a look at this one, where he's mid-run, running pretty confidently with a smug look on his face. This one, which looks to be right after he just finished running, still with that same smug look, but now he's looking directly at the camera. Around the mid-90s, however, popular culture in America began to change. Instead of following the trends of the late 80s, starting to form its own identity. What was that identity, you might ask? Skating and extreme sports. Sega wanted to capture the extremities of the extreme sports within Sonic's design, so they decided to give him a little update with the release of Sonic Adventure. First, we gotta talk about how they chose his new design. Sega, doing what they do for some reason whenever Sonic needs a design, held an internal design contest, and here were the top 4 results. Although you can clearly see the final design in the first place winner, you can also see elements of the other designs in the final as well.
I mentioned earlier in the video, Sega was kind of losing the 3D console race, and it wouldn't help that the release of the PlayStation 2 pretty much killed all chances that the Sega Dreamcast had at regaining Sega's former glory. So Sega stepped out of the console market and went multi-platform. But we're not there yet, so let's talk about Sonic Adventure 2. Now, Sonic Adventure 2, Sonic's design is pretty much exactly the same, but it's a little more refined. It's a little less rubber hosey, a little less stretchy, has more defined proportions. But we also have to talk about Shadow the Hedgehog. Now, I know this video is only about Sonic, but Shadow is to Sonic what Sonic was to Mario. He's a reflection of what Sonic was supposed to be at first. Shadow is the sharper, cooler, meaner Sonic, which is literally what Sonic was to Mario. He was edgier, he had an attitude. He was everything Mario wasn't. It almost sees a Sonic team parodying themselves on how they portrayed Sonic in the 90s. Now, spoilers for those who haven't played Sonic Adventure 2 for some reason. You should go play it, very good game. But Shadow dies at the end of the game, and I think it's symbolic of how Sonic Team very well could have been over with this game. This was the last game released on Sega hardware, so Sonic Team was basically just leaving this all out there like, this is our final, this is our swan song, this is our magnum opus. So Shadow's death really symbolizes the death of Sega as a console manufacturer and the possible death of Sonic Team. So now that Sega, and by extension Sonic, are multi-platform, Sega realizes that Sonic isn't the hot ticket item that people are buying the console for, because there is no console to buy. So Sega goes through a little bit of a period where Sonic is just flip-flopping all over the place to some critically mixed games such as Sonic Heroes, Shadow the Hedgehog, but one critically very bad game called Sonic the Hedgehog 2006. Now, that game would not be the death of the franchise, as many people claim that it is, that was the turning point, but it really did kind of kill the personality and art style that Sega had. If you notice, every game after Sonic 06 uses pretty much the same art style, that being the CGI cutscene models from Shadow the Hedgehog in the opening and ending cutscenes. While the models look great when animated in the right context, like in the Shadow the Hedgehog intro and in other greatly animated intros like Sonic Unleashed, in the wrong context, they don't look very good. Take a look at some of these renders that Sega has been using for
well over a decade now. These models really only reached their peak towards the end of the HD era when the in-game models and the cutscene models were of the same quality. And after that, Sega just kept using them, not even in-game, just for promotional material. Like, they changed the in-game model for most Sonic games after that. And breezing through this because I want to keep it brief, but Sega has basically been corporatizing Sonic the Hedgehog. Like, the way that he is marketed is so corporate friendly. He's just some blue guy. And it's not like the 3D artwork doesn't leave room for flexibility. I mean, if you look at the renders for Sonic Frontiers, they look great. And they're still using the same models. It's just supposed to show that these nearly 20-year-old models still look great with proper lighting and proper posing. But Sega just refuses to actually do that and continue to use these pretty bad renders from years ago. I know people like to dog on the Sonic community for complaining about literally everything, especially on the app formerly known as Twitter, called X now, but no one's gonna call it that because that's stupid. Anyway, yeah, we're gonna end this video off with just a compilation of bad Sonic renders. Bye.